Hi everyone, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Great, that's awesome. So I think it's good time we can talk. Okay, we can start with the session. Okay, so today we are going to talk about the critical use of ML ops in finance. I'm sure that sounds interesting to all of you present over here today, right? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. So when I talk about the critical use of ML ops in finance, going a step back from that, where do we see our enterprises challenged today? Like having worked for like almost 2 decades with enterprises now, and you all being such experienced professionals, we are all witnessing that enterprises today are increasingly challenged with what? With operationalizing their AI needs, their machine learning initiatives, and that's what is a big blocker towards a road to success. So that's where the thing MLOps comes in because data and analytics leaders today, they use a step-by-step approach, which is towards managing and expanding their AI initiatives. But the main thing to consider over here is when I talk about machine learning engineering, when I say that, what are we actually talking about? We're talking about a superset of software engineering where we are treating data, I emphasize data, as the first class citizen, which is a key to ML engineering. So there comes MLOps. Leveraging MLOps is the biggest key to improving the quality and consistency of our machine learning solutions. And that's what I'm going to go ahead and discuss today in our conversation. Like, why is MLOps so critical? And how are we going ahead and redefining specifically banking, like in finance sector, leveraging MLOps? What is the future hold for us? That's the main agenda of our conversation. Let's go started from there. Okay. So before I go ahead and get started into MLOps specifically, like when I talk about an organization's infrastructure, like being a part of any organization, like diverse industries across, we see the infrastructure like we have like three distinct phases of an organization's infrastructure. Talk about ML ops, talk about data ops, or talk about DevOps. So when I talk about ML ops, MLOps is nothing but a framework where we are developing models so that we can be making the decisions based on our data, the most important component of all our solutions. That's where MLOps is. But at the core of MLOps, like at the core of our infrastructure, is data ops. What is data ops? It's all about automation, the big buzzword today. Here we automate all the ETL processes, the data wrangling, model training, and deployment. And why do we do this? Because by doing this in an automated fashion, what we are saving is we are saving considerable time in our day-to-day jobs, and that's where data ops helps us. Now, talking of DevOps, we have all lived through the ages of DevOps now. So MLOps and DevOps are very closely related. So, but when I say MLOps and DevOps are quite closely related, I'll delve into that even more deeper in the slides ahead. But I want to clearly emphasize over here that although they're very clearly related, but they focus on very different aspects of the development process. While the goal of MLOps, as I just mentioned, is to reduce the downtime through automation of machine learning systems, the goal of DevOps is to reduce the manual intervention of software systems. That's where the distinction lies there. Okay. So when I say like they are quite similar, okay, and I'm just jumping in between, taking a pause here. So if you are like posting any questions in the chat, I'll take them all towards the end. I hope that's okay with everybody. So when I say MLOps and DevOps are so related, so how is MLOps derived from the DevOps principle? Because DevOps was the initial strategy that all of us had been heading towards. So unlike DevOps, MLOps is much more experimental in nature. That's the critical like differentiator where it comes in. Like having lived in the shoes of a data scientist, like data scientists are ML engineers, are DL engineers. They have to, as ML engineers, we have to work on like we have to tweak various features. Talk about hyperparameters, talk about models, and while also keeping a track we have to do this while we also keep a track of managing the data and the code base for the reproducible results that we want to have. So that's what brings the experimental nature of MLOps. That's where the critical difference lies with MLOps from DevOps. So now from here begins the main meat of the presentation. So data. Why would data make MLOps and DevOps so different? This is the fundamental difference. So there's a fundamental, like when I say MLO, machine learning is not just code. We all agree with that. Machine learning is not just code. It's less code and more about data. Because we go ahead and create an ML model, the artifact that ends up in the production by applying an algorithm to it and to a mass of training data. And that training data is the most critical component because this training data is something which will affect the behavior of the model in production. And that's where the business impacts will come in. That's where we want to see the results to be coming up from. So that's data is what makes our MLOps and DevOps critically different and like way different. Although MLOps is derived from DevOps, this is the main distinguishing factor which keeps them all both in the different buckets. So now that we understand the infrastructure strategy of the organizations, how DevOps, DataOps, MLOps are related to each other, how MLOps had actually evolved from DevOps, now we actually go ahead and delve into specifically MLOps. But before I go ahead start talking about specifically MLOps, I want to talk about machine learning. Okay, so when I say machine learning, like or a machine learning process or a machine learning projects, so I don't want to go ahead and delve into successful machine learning projects. I want to go ahead and talk about what are the reasons that we are seeing our machine learning projects fail, because that's what we want to go ahead and overcome. That's what we want to go ahead and step over when we bring a talk about ML ops. So what causes the machine learning projects to fail? So, talking about machine learning investments across the organizations. So, machine learning investments that we are having across the organizations, like we see them, we are all witnessing them. They're highly skewed towards the data science hires, what do you call that? Like the talent in the market. Okay, so and they're very important, and there are other critical areas like infrastructure and automation which are underrepresented. So that's one reason, a big reason to fail. Second reason is like however like there's an operational framework, but there are also a people culture and technology which is necessary. So there needs to be that right balance between that. And due to this and this all comes with data, because we are having a large supply of data science expertise in the market today, and we are having like petabytes to exabytes of data that we want to go ahead and evaluate and analyze. So the hiring is relatively going way faster, and the work to do is exponentially increasing. So this is what is causing some of an organizational tunnel vision. So there are some blind spots which bring on the infrastructure and system side, which is what we need to overcome. And that's where MLOps come in. So I want to go ahead and put this in a more simpler way. I know these three were like a bit confusing points. So let me go ahead and put this in a more simpler way for you. Like, what is the biggest challenge? Like, I like talking about everything in terms of data. So what is the biggest challenge with the machine learning process? Let's talk about that in terms of data. So while, as I said, machine learning is less about code and more about data. So while the code is carefully crafted in a controlled development environment, data is not. Where is data coming from? Data is coming from like unrelenting entropy sources known as like which is not always a historical world, which is real world. So that real time data, it will never stop changing, and we cannot control how it will change, right? So that's where the challenge comes in. So we need to have a very useful way to think about the relationship between our code and the data, as if they live on like separate planes. That's because data is completely evolving and completely changing. We need to adjust to that. But both these planes are sharing the time dimension. Like they're independent of every other way, but they're sharing the time dimension. So that's where I want to go ahead and emphasize the challenge of ML process. The challenge of ML process is to bridge between these two planes, like I said, the code and the data, to bridge between these two planes, which are sharing the time dimension in a very controlled manner. So that's where the challenge of ML process comes in. How do we go ahead and like how do we help create a bridge between these two planes in a very controlled way? That's where MLOps comes in. We understand the machine learning process, we understand the challenge, we know what we need to do in order to solve that challenge, and the answer is MLOps. So, MLOps. When I talk about MLOps, like I explained why do we need it, but what is MLOps exactly? It's nothing but a set of some good practices. That what are we trying to do with those practices? I'll go into details as we go ahead. We're trying to deploy and maintain the machine learning models that we're having in production so that we can be running them and producing the required results in a very reliable and an efficient manner. That's where the goal of MLOps comes in. So as an organization, like if I'm running my organization, what do I need from MLOps? I want to have a means to rapidly deploy my models into the production environments while ensuring that they're continuously improving over the time. We don't want stagnant models. We want real time results. We want real time updates. We want real time business value. So in simple terms, very simplistic language, I would say MLOps is the combination of machine learning and operations, bringing the two distinct teams together. It encompasses both the data science and the software operations, and at the same time, operations encompasses all the activities which are involved in running applications, like say anything from setting up servers, implementing infrastructure, managing application information, anything that you can think about, or the performance reasons. And all of us who are familiar with DevOps, we all very well understand that MLOps represents a natural extension of existing practices, like talk about CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous development, or say ASD, automated software deployment that we're having in our machine learning systems. That's where MLOps is. Let me go in a bit more details about it from an architectural perspective. So, what's the role? Like what MLOps is architecturally? MLOps is a set of practices, like a set of best practices, I must say, for the collaboration and the communication between the data scientists and the operational professionals, as I just said. But applying these practices, what does that do? It increases the quality, not just increases the quality, but along with that comes the most critical required factor, simplifies the management process, and I said the buzzword in the beginning, automation, automation, automation automates the deployment of our machine learning and deep learning models in large scale production environments. Like I would say that from my practical experience, having worked with big enterprises, big cloud providers from Microsoft, Google, TD, Bank of Montreal, now it's Scotiabank, like these are having big production environments, and we want everything automated end to end, and we want the right data for that. MLOps is most critical to the organizations for efficiently running any model which are completely AI driven today. So MLOps serves as a map to guide our teams, small teams, big teams, and even businesses to achieve the goals, no matter no matter their constraints. Like say, as a financial organization, come talking of banks, we have so many constraints. Like talk about compliance, talk about the customer security, talk about the data residency needs. So many constraints. So whatever the constraints, be it the sensitive data or few resources or say small budget and so on. I can the list can go on ever and ever. So it's still there. So and the key phases, like when we are deploying this MLOps, the key phases of MLOps, what does it begin? Like if you see at the screen here, from left to right, it starts from the data gathering to the data analysis, then obviously the data transformation to have our required results, model training, model validation, finally serving what our customers need, and to ensure that we are having a real-time updates to it, and we are being alerted on times about what our customers need, what is the what are some things that need a head on say experience monitoring for that, and finally model retraining. That's in a very simplistic term what does MLOps life cycle look like. I hope that gives a good, clear idea to you about the phases involved in MLOps and how each one of them contributes towards the end-to-end life cycle and the automation towards it. So, having discussed what is machine learning, what is the infrastructure for the enterprise looking like, where does MLOps sit in, how do we go ahead and think of MLOps in terms of a machine learning lifecycle. Next, I would talk about specifically my area of interest and what we are talking, what I'm specifically here to talk about today. MLOps in financial services. So I know every organization needs so every organization needs MLOps, but we want to go ahead and talk about specifically why financial services. So what's the role of MLOps in financial services? Like it's not something new. It's nothing new actually. Like it's I have been in the industry for like only 15 years, and it's even way longer than that. Machine learning in financial services, like that has been around a while, but it has been mostly applied to solve some specific problems. Things are evolving over time, but as of yet, it has been specifically applied to solve some very specific problems. And these specific problems have been relatively narrow. Like off the top of my head, all of us can think about that. What does it come? The first thing that machine learning solves in a bank is fraud detection. Okay. What comes next? Some predictive maintenance of our legacy systems. Okay. And maybe some yield management. Like those are the very key scenarios that machine learning has been leveraged for some specific areas in the financial services. But as the time goes through, the data volumes have been continually growing like exabytes to petabytes, like exponentially. And with the new technologies that we're having today, talk of IoT, talk of AI, talk of robotics, talk about conversational interfaces, like I can go on about the technologies there. MLOps is emerging as the key piece of infrastructure for financial services. Like it is key piece for all other all other verticals across the industries, but for financial services, it is emerging as the key piece. Because when I talk about companies who want to take advantage of these new opportunities that I just talked about, MLOps is the critical factor which enables the real-time data analysis. And this is the need of the hour. I will re-emphasize, excuse me, real-time data analysis. So real-time data analysis, and this real-time data analysis is not from one or a known source, it's from multiple sources across all parts of the organizations, may that be business users, IT operations, developers, quality, assurance, testing, security, and these can be internal or external. So what is MLOps doing there? It is helping us with decision making at every stage of this application lifecycle and with this data that we're capturing there. And besides that, it is also helping us as organizations to take untapped human potential by automating, like we have some mundane tasks around our organizations today. So we want to go ahead and automate that. Automation is the key to success in every machine learning operation there. That's another thing that MLOps is the first is has the most critical factor influence towards. So that is in a very brief, the role of MLOps in financial services. But I want to go ahead and talk more about that. Like when I talk about MLOps in finance, there is like MLOps as I just started about in the beginning, like the key pieces of infrastructure, MLOps, DataOps, and DevOps. But MLOps in finance, this is the key piece of infrastructure for finance that is not just talking about the needs, the everyday needs for the banks today, but actually this is what is helping us go ahead towards the rapid innovation that we are seeing in the financial services today. So, like, how can we go ahead and talk about and relate this to the innovation that's happening today? So, when I talk about the innovation that's happening today, so this is MLOps is helping us go ahead and go ahead and head towards that journey, which is way more than those incremental improvements, but towards that radical innovation, as I just said. So, let me give you some examples here. Say, for example, we're talking about our business users who are trying to focus on some very business critical tasks, okay, and they have minimal IT involvement there. So that's where MLOps comes in, okay. It would help us ensure that the traditional IT processes that we are having today, they don't get blocked or slowed down. How would it do that? By maintaining, say, versions across a wide area of libraries or expanding some modeling frameworks. So these are certain ways it will help ensure that all the blockers are taken care of ahead of time. And not just that, across all the environments that our customers are having to we are having our customers use the environment today. Customers are digitally transacting with the consistent code checks or say version controls, and that's CI/CD pipelines. That's where again MLOps comes in, making it sure that things are very streamlined for our customers, and that's a big factor of success for our customers across the financial services industry. So I know that was a very good gist into it, but I want to go ahead and talk about in terms of some practical scenario. So like as a bank, where am I can talk about some specific example. I have been in the banking industry, like financial service industry, for a while. So how does adapting MLOps for banks or for financial services actually leverage value? So let me give you a simple scenario for that. So let's say I will not talk about any specific bank. I've been across all the four big banks across the country now, but I'll just talk in a general. Let's say that you have a bank, and the bank has say millions of customers. Okay, and obviously when I have billions of customers, we're having few billion customer transaction records as well. Now each one of the transactions that we're having, definitely due to so many factors, each of those transactions is very different in nature. So now imagine that my CFO comes to me, and my CFO wants to know that on an average, Vinny, how much money does each customer spends each month? Or more simplistically put, like my CFO wants to know like who are the low value customers. Like say for example, who are the customers who are spending like less than $100 each month, and who are high value customers, like we should focus most on. So like and who like across these customer segmentation that we are doing, like what should be the offers that we want to go ahead and give to our customers, because we want to go ahead and increase the revenue for the banks. We want a very good journey, a targeted journey for our customers, but also we want a very good ROI for the bank. So these are some questions that are coming. So now talking of these questions, like definitely we can have some human a manual solution to it. Like you can think about a human who can read the balance sheets and interpret the data from there. But just guess how much time would it take for a human being to go through 1 million customer, billions of transactions, and go ahead and interpret the data from there? It would take like long. I don't even want to quantify in terms of months or years that it would take for an analyst to get that information. And if there's more than one product to analyze, things get even more complex. So if you think of your if you think that IT team will take care, then you are definitely, I don't want to say that, but you are definitely likely to fail miserably there. So the operational difficulty your IT team has to go through will obtain this information in like is a nightmare for them. Like in most cases what happens is operations problems usually involve like one or more of a lot of things, like big data scalability, reliability, performance, accessibility, and whatnot. And this could take them, as I just said, I cannot even quantify in months or years how long would it take. But there we have a turnkey solution for these problems. So how you make all the complex situations and get the answers quickly, that's the biggest question here. How do we solve this problem without having our manual efforts, without having some on-prem machine learning solutions? Like how do we actually go ahead and do that? So as I said, each one of the transaction is different in nature. Okay, so how do we actually go ahead and solve that? Like I actually went ahead and did a good threshold of this. Like this is a solution that I have implemented. I implemented at one of the big banks. Like we had on-prem, so we had like completely on manual the solution being implemented manual first, on-prem machine learning Hadoop-based solution. Then we actually went ahead and did a comparisons as to what is the cost savings, what is the customer influence, what is the value, what are the time savings that we're having by taking MLOps to the cloud infrastructure, like combining our data science, machine learning, and operations. And because with that, we were targeting at simplifying our data problems at scale. That's what we were doing. So that's where I can give you a quick snippet into it. I can't share the real-time data that we actually worked upon, but I can share a quick snippet as to what the results look like. So if you see at the screen here, so I'm actually talking about like how like what are the challenges like with both the on-prem and the cloud infrastructure, and how to go ahead and encompass them towards achieving the maximum results from them. Say, when I talk about the historical ways that the banks had or the organizations had been working upon, building your own platform. So, talking about building your own platform and infrastructure, that will take, as I said, will take more and more of your focus and attention, and it will, as the demand increases. Excuse me. So the time could be spent on model R&D or say data collection. That will all be taken to by infrastructure management, which is not a good way to spend your time, because modeling is the thing that you want to go ahead and focus more on. Business, what is your business logic? That's what you want to focus on. So that's where, and you might want to go ahead and think about buying a fully managed platform. Like, I've helped enterprises go ahead and leverage fully managed platforms. So, and that does give some, that does bring in so much flexibility, that does bring in scalability there. But talking specifically about financial services or financial organizations, we might not want to go ahead and completely rely on a fully managed platform, because you're faced with like so many constraints, as I just mentioned before in the previous slide: compliance, regulations, security issues, data privacy, and whatnot. So what is the solution? Where does the solution lie? There comes the answer to the question: hybrid cloud infrastructure. So we might want to have a very hybrid cloud infrastructure for MLOps, because that is something which will bring the best of both the worlds. But it's not a piece of cake. Every solution comes with some drawbacks. It does pose some unique challenges. So it's completely about upon your needs, about the business needs, and to decide if what is the business model that fits best to the needs. I hope that gives you the alignment as to where does which model would fit in. I want to go ahead and talk a bit more about like what are some of the what is the best say direction towards leveraging MLOps solution at scale. As I said, like completely managed solutions or a hybrid solution. But you could be actually going ahead and thinking of like end-to-end MLOps solutions. As I said, like these are fully managed services. So what will these do? They will provide your developers, your data scientists with a complete ability end-to-end, build, train, deploy ML models quickly, and the top commercial they use the top commercial solutions in the market today. Like, talk about Google, Microsoft, Amazon. Like, they have the top solutions today. Like, talking of Microsoft Azure MLOps suite, that's something I've worked closely with, like Azure Machine Learning, Azure Pipelines, Azure Monitor, the community services. Or those of you who have been working on Amazon, like SageMaker. That's a complete set of tools to build, train, deploy, and monitor machine learning models. Or why do I leave behind Google? Google Cloud MLOps suite has like data flow, the AI platform network, Kubeflow pipelines, like, and GKE. So you have fully managed solutions that you can go and leverage there. But as I said, you might want not to go ahead and leverage that completely out of the box. You want to have some customized solutions built for yourself. So that's where comes in the second bullet that I have there: some custom built MLOps solutions, because we have an ecosystem of tools today. Okay, so you want to these end-to-end solutions I just mentioned before this, they're great. But you want to go ahead and you want to go ahead and build solutions with your favorite tools, with not just favorite, the tools that your teams have been leveraging all the time. You don't want to bring in any gaps in the learning. So you want to bring in solutions with your favorite tools, and you by dividing your MLOps pipelines into multiple microservices. That's the approach that you want to go ahead and take. And this approach can help you avoid, say, a single point of failure. That's what you want to go ahead and do. And you want to make your pipeline very robust. This makes your pipeline, say, easier to audit, debug, and audit, debug, and go ahead and leverage along the way there. So that's where the thing is. But when I talk about future proofing these solutions, like, we want to go ahead and future proof these solutions, like, say, with resilient models and data operations. So how do we go ahead and do that? The financial services industry specifically already has a lot of data, and partly this is because of the regulation, as I've been mentioning over and over again, and partly this is also because of sheer number of transactions that we have today. And we cannot oversee the factor of why humans like to spend money. Okay, so that's what brings the complexity. So different divisions of a bank can each work on different problems, And while they compete for the business, they can also collaborate, share data and ideas. So that said, those are a lot of things about MLOps. What does the future of MLOps hold for us? Like we have seen a plethora of opportunities that MLOps has. So what does the future of MLOps hold for us? This is a lot. So there's still way more to come. So regardless, as I said, regardless of who is more successful in the confrontation, banks versus fintech companies or the other industries, I want to emphasize very boldly that MLOps will always play the most important role in the development of industry in the coming years. And I'll not even say almost all, I will say all financial institutions are actually fighting inactive model management, especially slow for efficient deployments. So there was a latest report by Forbes or McKinsey, if I'm not sure, like only 6% of the app companies are actively using it today. Like talking specifically of AI, like it's not being actively used for decision making, and less than hardly 15% have an IT infrastructure to support the model deployment. So future holds a lot for us. Now, talk about future holds a lot for us. There's a lot that we have to do. There's a lot that we can actually go ahead and do to support the DevOps in its integration with development processes, and have expertise in working with AI and data science. So that's a lot to do. But this all can be very daunting. It's not such an easy piece of cake. So, towards the end of my talk today, I want to go ahead and leave you all with some set of best practices through this daunting process, which can help you all in practically deployment or leveraging of MLOps across the organizations. So, when I say some best practices towards this daunting process, these best practices are coming from my personal experiences across the industry. So say I'll talk in terms of examples. Say you need to be able to you need to be able to build model artifacts that contain all the information that is needed to pre-process your data and generate a result. So once you build a model artifacts, you have to be able to track the code that builds them and the data most importantly that you use to train and test on. So what is the most important thing is you need to keep a track of how all these three of the things that I mentioned, the models, the code, and the data are related. You always have to keep a strong track of that. You can't leave a vision of either of those. And once you can track all these three things, you also mark them ready for staging and production and run them through a CI/CD process. Because finally, to actually deploy them at the end of the process, you need some way, some very well defined way to spin up a service which is based on that model artifact. So this is one big thing I want to leave you all with, that never leave a track of either of these three things: models, their code, and the data. They are very much related to each other. So, and this is what these best practices, I just mentioned, this is what will actually help you delve into solving your hurdles that you're seeing, not just your AI hurdles, but all the production hurdles that you're seeing today. So talking, I can talk of a very practical example that I'm doing today. Like today at Scotiabank, like we are actually leveraging some hybrid approach towards this. Say we are leveraging one of the managed services that we are leveraging. Say we are leveraging Vortex AI, which is a comprehensive managed machine learning platform, which increases the rate of your experimentation and helps us accelerate the time to all the business projects that we are having. So how we are going ahead and doing that? What can we do with it? We're actually making AI more accessible. We are making AI more accessible. We are making very helping our employees, helping our teams, helping our customers make very well informed decisions on time. So by this, we are improving the collaboration between the teams across all the levels of the technical expertise. We're ensuring that there is reliability, there's performance scalability, and above all, the need of the security of our all machine learning systems. And this is what is increasing. The first thing I said in the beginning of the presentation, what do I need? We need the return on investment of our machine learning projects. And this is what is bringing the return on investment of our machine learning projects. So I think that's all I had for today. And I hope that gave you a good snippet into the machine ML ops, where is it heading, and what all the future holds for ML ops in for financial services. Thank you so much, and I'll quickly look at the questions. Although I think I'm over time, and you can feel free to go ahead and reach me at my email address. I'll just leave that email address in my in the chat here as well. So I'm more than happy answering any of the questions that you have. And I just see a question here that you were not clear about the example I provided about the banking customer metrics for CFO when you made the jump from traditional data analytics won't work. Okay, so how would that ML solution look like? Okay, so that's a very good question. So you want me to go ahead and delve into actually what did I do there? So what for that ML solution? Like I can go ahead and build upon that once over again, just for everybody. So the example that I gave was, okay, so we have millions of customers, we have billions of transactions. Each transaction is completely different. Okay, so we have so much data to go ahead and analyze, go ahead and look into, and we want to build a classification system first of all on top of that, because we want to go my CFO wants me to classify the customers under categories: low value customers, high value customers. On top of that, I want to go ahead and build up a prediction system, like I say, a next best action system, to be more particular, as to our low value customers or to our high value customers. How do we go ahead and say, give predictions, very targeted predictions, as to what do we do, what if this customer is leveraging these banking products today, what is the most appropriate product to go ahead and offer to my customer. So building this end-to-end machine learning solution using classification, regression, and an AI model, that's what, I was talking about, comparing for a on-premises solution, a manual one, and to a one on cloud. I hope that answers your question. And I just see another question over here: Vertex versus SageMaker. No comments there. Each of them is very good in its own way. It's Vortex and SageMaker. They are both two of the best solutions in the market, I must say. It depends upon so many factors. Like, each solution is different. So I would say each problem is different, each solution is different, depending upon the integrations, depending upon the data, depending upon the scalability needs that you have. Each one will accordingly fall into line. Like, if you have some specific questions around the kind of data that you have, and then you want to go ahead and have some guidance around that, I've experienced both with Vertex and with Sage, less with SageMaker, more with Vertex and Azure. So I'll be more than happy to share my thoughts on that. Feel free to drop the questions in the detailed notes at the email address I just shared. I hope that answers your questions, and thank you so much for joining me today. And that's all for today. Talk to you soon. Have a good day.